Today I wanted to talk about how you can revive an old vintage lens and bring it back to life using a Panasonic G85 or any other Micro Four Thirds camera. Welcome to the channel. My name is Mike Mandigo. This is Passion Video Productions. Going back to what I was just talking about, I wanted to talk about a vintage lens that I just picked up at a thrift stop in my local town where I'm living. Now, the lens that I'm using is called the Kitstar 28mm lens. I tried to do a little bit of research on this lens, and the only thing that I could come up with about the history is that it's a vintage lens that was made somewhere in between the 80s and the 90s. Now, in this 1.4M from Pentax, I was able to come up with, piece together a little bit of details that talk about where it was from and who made it. Now, a lot of the people that were mentioning where this lens came from, they said it could be a Hoya, or they said it could be some other manufacturers. There was one person that made a comment in the thread, it was from 2017, where this person was saying in Western Canada, so I'm assuming someplace out by BC or on the prairies perhaps, but that it was from a camera manufacturer that goes by the name of Kits. I tried to do a little bit of research on that camera based on that guy's response. So the research that I searched up was like Kits camera, but the only thing that it was giving me was camera kits that were for sale. So I typed in Kitstar brand camera and not much popped up. It showed a few pictures that some people had used, or like some pictures that people had posted of cameras that they had. There was very little information. So what it says on this lens is that it's multi-coated, and I believe also that it says it's made in Japan. What made me want to buy this lens was I had went to go check in the thrift shop, as I was saying. This lens I noticed had a similar mount to a lens that I was already using, which was the Helios 44-2. The Helios 44-2 that I'm using is a M42 mount as well. So that's the part that stood out to me the most, was the M42 mount. The lens was inside of a lens case, and the main part of the lens that looks out, like this part right here, this was facing down, and the M42 screw mount was facing up. That's what caught my attention, and I spoke with the person that was working at the shop. He didn't know too much about the lens, but I did a little bit of research, tried to just see what I could find, if it was an actual M42 mount, and from the looks of it, and from one of the comments that I had seen that looked quickly, the person did say that they thought it was an M42 mount as well. And so I decided to buy it. It was $20 or $19.99 plus tax. So we're living in Canada, the taxes are applied after you buy something, and they're not included in the total price. So anyways, it came to around $23. So what I like about this lens is that it's a 28mm lens, and when we put that onto the G85, which has a 2x crop factor, it makes this lens the full frame equivalent of 56mm. So just a little bit bigger than a 50mm lens. And I thought that was pretty cool. So it's going to give me like a nifty 50 style vintage lens for using on the G85. Another cool thing that I noticed about this lens is that it has a really low minimum focusing distance. So I want to run a few tests using this lens, shooting in 4K at 24 frames per second, just to see how well it works out, and then play some of that footage to show you as well and get your opinion on if you think it looks good or not, if it was a good value for $23. So let me know in the comments what your experience is using vintage lenses on your G85 setup. What type of lenses are you using on your G85? Let's talk about it down in the comments. So it goes from an f2.8 to an f16 for the aperture on this. And I found that f2.8, it does give kind of like a washed out look, which I have heard can be good for if you're wanting to do more color grading down the line. It's going to give you more flexibility with contrast. But if you wanted to avoid having that washed out look using this lens, you're going to stop your aperture down a little bit more, somewhere around 5 or 5.6 or higher. I'm right now, I guess, typically with the filming I've been doing is at f4 and f5.6. Well, since there wasn't really much history on this lens that I could find online, that's pretty much going to wrap up this video here. I just wanted to say, if you haven't tried shooting with vintage lenses on your G85, give it a shot. Go check out some of your local thrift shops or pawn shops, and maybe you might come across something that you can use with your G85 for a low budget cost. All right, thanks for checking out this video, and I'll see you in the next one.